As far as the engine goes, still runs strong, even though it's 100 something hours over TBO. It does use a little bit of oil. I would say probably about a quart every 4 to 5 hours. I've read that's typical for chrome cylinders on older engines. There may be some oil getting into the cylinders, possibly. I did have some plug fouling on the bottom plugs on cylinder number 6, which is this cylinder on the pilot side, front cylinder. And I switched to fine wire plugs. As long as you lean it real aggressive on the ground when you're taxiing, especially using higher leaded fuel, you won't get the plug fouling. And if there is a plug fouling, I usually run it up to about 2200 RPMs for about a minute and a half, lean it out a little bit on the ground, and it clears it out really well, and the mag checks out fine. If you have any questions, comment. The plane's on Barnstormers. It's on, gonna be on Trade-A-Plane, maybe Controller. And I'll have links to these videos. I also have another video of me flying about 1.5 years ago. Just took a trip, just kind of some general commentary. When I get a chance, I'll make a video specific to flying it and talking about how it performs and settings and different things for prospective buyers, with the intent to just give out information that folks would have questions on the plane about when they're looking at buying it. I do have logbooks since the beginning. It's interesting looking back. Plane's been in Northern California most of its life. It was owned previously by a friend of my grandfather's who owned a ranch in Yolo County. So it's predominantly been in Northern California. I think in the 60s and maybe 70s. It came out west. It was back east for a few years, came out west, and then at some point my grandfather's friend, who was a rancher, acquired it, and then I acquired it in 2008 from my grandfather's friend, who took really well care of it. Some things that I've noticed is when I first bought it, I took it down to Santa Maria. The Cessna Pilots Association had a rigger down there to rig the controls. So when we took out the headliner, we discovered that everything's zinc chromated up there. And if you take up the carpet, I just did this on the annual. My inspector, AMP and inspector, commented on the zinc chromating of the floorboards. Corrosion protected. Taking off any of these inspection plates here at the tail, it's zinc chromated inside. And then the tail cone, you can see zinc chromate. I did include a picture of the tail cone from the baggage compartment. Looks like somebody sprayed some sort of LPS 1 or 2 or something in there, some waxy, oily substance. It's also in the wings. If you go into these inspection plates, there's kind of a waxy, oily substance. It's not beer can, aluminum, shiny, bright, but there is some sort of coating that's, for corrosion protection. It is very minor surface corrosion that you can see it in certain places. I've sprayed ACF 50 various corners of this aircraft throughout the years. So it doesn't seem like there's any deep penetrating corrosion. I've had it inspected by the local mechanic who's very thorough, and then they agree that just some minor surface corrosion that is inside some of the parts. And if you spray an ACF 50, it kills that instantly. We'll hit our master. That's the turn coordinator, gyro spinning up. The altimeter is an altitude reporting altimeter. So that is reporting to the transponder. Part of that is, I believe, for maybe the autopilot, or that's what they installed. So it doesn't have a blind encoder. It has altitude reporting altitude reporting altimeter. So all the numbers light up. On this top comm, I did have issues with the display. I had that fixed. And I had the speaker on. So turn the speaker off. DME is intermittent. I sometimes can get it to work with closer to the station, but it may be need an adjustment or something like that. A few years ago, I was attempting to do my IFR, so I had the DME installed. Comm and nav, both the comm up here and this comm work great. This nav, like I said before, the indicator is intermittent. The Narco AT165 gives you pressure, altitude, and flight time. And it has buttons where you can hit VFR, ident, a timer. You can add alarm for altitude. If you're assigned an altitude and you go below that altitude, or you're going off that altitude, you can have an alarm. Sometimes when it gets real hot, for some reason the transponder display, it may go blank. It's still reporting. I've checked it. I just think there's a display, intermittent display, typical Narco type of equipment. And then the nav, you can get the frequency, you can get a to bearing and a from bearing. And you go to that, you get the frequency for your standby. And the interesting thing about that is you can always tell what radio you're at, either to or from. And it'll give you a digital readout of your radial, and then you can go to your indicator here. We'll switch to the local frequency for IFR, and we get a flag here, and we should be, it's 15, so showing the runway is to the right of the airplane, which is true. If we were pointing down the runway would be to the right of us. So we're fully indicating that we need to go that direction to get back to the runway. When I fly, I'll demonstrate and check it out. So you got a LOC, you got VOR, and then you have digital readout for your VOR, which on the localizer, it won't give a digital readout. And then if I turn on this nav, I don't get any movement. I get a 2 flag, but it looks like I got a little bit of a glide slope lip. I'll check that in there. You may be able to use the glide slope on this one, but I think the left-right indicator isn't operating. It's a very old indicator. So if I turn off the nav, you can see it goes red flag. It looks like the glide slope went back to center position, so you may have some sort of glide slope interaction there. So all of that's off. So there is a alternator. This aircraft originally equipped with a generator, but it has an alternator, and it's a conversion. I can't remember the company that has the STC, but it's an STC for an alternator conversion. A few years ago, I had a voltage regulator issue, which it wasn't charging the battery. So I ended up replacing the voltage regulator with a plain power voltage regulator, which is a very good regulator. And they had the instructions for this particular STC to install the voltage regulator for the alternator setup this aircraft has. And that red light goes off. So what that red light is indicating is there's no charge coming from the alternator, of course, because the engine's off. So you're in flight, you see that red light, that tells you the alternator is not making a charge and you're just running on battery. So, and then the blip, back and forth blip, is the speaker you can hear. There's a speaker above my head. This glare shield is aftermarket. It's a fiberglass glare shield. And then I have lighting installed underneath the eyebrow of this glare shield, and you just have a simple connector there. It's not LED. There's an STC for just incandescent lighting, but possibility of placing LED lighting up there. The connector's there that runs into the lighting system. So if you want brighter lights, it's okay. It's not the brightest.